Yeah, buddy. The tower's crumbling. But the truth has undermined your foundation. You thought that you'd see the day that you could just get away from the ones you betrayed, who've raised their voices to say you won't be trusted anymore. Anyway, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe, floating through the void of Yah's creation. It is the 19th of November, 2025. These are the WTF reports. I'm your host, Dave VonKleist, and I'm here, WTF, with the facts. What were you thinking? Well, those facts sometimes may help you to exclaim, WTF! What the hell is going on here? Anyway, welcome to the Wednesday hump day, don't you dare crump day, don't be a chump day, time to get pumped day version of the WTF reports. And they're being brought to you in part by, of course, the Wave Watch. The Wave Watch, by the way, they've got a new edition coming out, and so they're clearing out, they first came out with the Wave Watch, then they came out with the Wave Watch 2.0, which is what they've got on the market now, and they are preparing for the release of a 2.2. Yeah, there's a new version, and I haven't looked into it yet. I just noticed that they posted it. I imagine that they've got more frequencies and more features. But they're doing a clearance on the 2.0, which is still, a fabulous Wave Watch. It's the one I've got. And so anyway, I believe that's, you have to check it out. I believe they're going from, 10% off if you use the promo code. I think you'll get 25% off because they're doing a clearance. So go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, and there'll be a pop-up window there. It'll take you down to information about the Wave Watch. You really need to find out about this. This is Tesla technology that was refined by Royal Raymond Rife, and you may have heard of Rife machines. Well, the Wave Watch is a Rife machine you wear on your wrist, and it is pretty doggone cool. So check it out. Go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, and check out the Wave Watch. Okay, well, let me see. I found a really interesting statistic. And, you regular listeners know that we have quoted the Johns Hopkins University study, the ancestry study that they did last year, 2024. I believe it was in April or May. And they did an ancestry study, and they found that 97.5% of Israelis are from Eastern Europe or North America. In other words, they are not indigenous to the Middle East. They have no bloodlines that lead them back to the quote-unquote Holy Land. So we have a large group, a very overwhelming percentage of those who are calling themselves Jews, but they are not. They are the Talmudic Ashkenazi Khazarian offshoot. They're the ones who basically appropriated the Jewish faith back, about 1,500 years ago, and they have been masquerading as indigenous Holy Land descendants, but they are not. So that is 97.5% of the Israelis. And they, by the way, they also did an ancestry study on the Palestinians, and they found that 80% are indeed indigenous to the Middle East and the Holy Land. So that means the Palestinians in general are the Semites. That makes those Israelis that are attacking the Palestinians the anti-Semites. Okay, we've already established that, and that's out there. More and more people are noticing that and scratching their head and saying, wait a second, that's completely bass-ackwards and upside down from everything I've ever been told. Well, that's sort of standard operating procedure. There's a lot of stuff up there that is absolutely the opposite of what you've been told. And this is why there's such a great noticing going on. But anyway, getting back to this interesting coincidence that I noticed. Well, if it's 97.5% of the Israelis are not indigenous, okay, and I found, and I did another research and found that it's only 2.4 or maybe 2.5% of the population in this country call themselves Jews. I find those numbers very coincidental. Yeah, that means 97.5% of the people in this country are not Jewish, and yet 97.5% approximately, I mean, you get 535 members of Congress, and only a handful are not taking money from AIPAC, and I would guesstimate that works out to be about 97.5% of the members of Congress are taking money from AIPAC. And then you also take a look at those percentages. Look who's controlling our media. Who's controlling the newspapers? Who's controlling big pharma? Who's controlling big agriculture? Who's controlling, all of the major institutions and businesses in this country? Yeah. I mean, when you look at I've seen graphics, of like CBS, and here's all the major movers and shakers and policymakers in CBS, and overwhelmingly they got that star of Remphan right there. I would say it's probably somewhere around 97.5% of the people in CBS are represented there. And let's look at NBC and CBS and CNN. It's the same. It's if not the same, it's pretty doggone close. So I found that rather interesting. I just thought I'd throw that out there because, we have undue influence from a foreign country that's basically controlling this country. And a lot of people are just ticked off about it. And you can't draw attention to that because, you're an anti-Semite. You're that. Yeah, right. Well, I'm pointing out that everything is upside down and bass-ackwards. And it's so true. So, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there to kick off the program. And, it's just some numbers to throw around, and I found them rather coincidental. Now, I could be wrong. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of times that people are wrong, and when as they say, when an honest man is mistaken, and he hears the truth, he will either cease to be mistaken or he will cease to be honest. So, that's, I'm open to making, adjustments to my beliefs, and hopefully you are too. It's not a bad thing to be wrong once in a while. It's a learning opportunity. And, a lot of people are starting to learn. They're starting to figure this stuff out. And, as a matter of fact, there's a woman who posted the following here, and I thought I would share it with you. And again, I get a lot of my stuff from social media because you just can't trust the alphabet networks anymore. Yeah, there's some stuff out there that is worth repeating. But overwhelmingly, I mean, TikTok and Truth Social and Instagram and Telegram and X and, all the social media programs, this is where people are getting their information now. And this is why the ratings for the alphabet networks has gone right down the hopper. So anyway, I just share this little piece of little tidbit of information here. Here it is.
If you still believe the official Holocaust narrative after seeing what Israel is doing in Gaza, you're retarded. Just think about it. The news is owned by Jews, created by Jews. The media, owned by Jews. Our government, clearly owned by Jews. The curriculum in your schools, your textbooks, owned, created by Jews. Gender ideology, which is ruining the family unit, created by a Jew. Now, this isn't an attack on Jews as a whole, right? Because there are people who are born Jews who don't practice Judaism. But when you look at the Talmud, their holy book, this is what they base Jewish law off of. Here's a screenshot of what they say about non-Jews, a.k.a. Goyim.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. She posted, several different quotes from the Talmud, the Talmud. And if you haven't seen some of the stuff that's in the Talmud, you really should, because it's crazy. It's sick. It's monstrous. It really is. I'll let her continue.
They think that it's okay to molest a child as long as they're 3 years old.
Yep.
They have a duty in their holy book to lie to non-Jews about what's in the Talmud.
That's right, because we are Goyim. Yeah, we are less than human.
If they ask, hey, what does it say about non-Jews? They're supposed to lie to you about it. These are the people that you're allowing to frame this narrative about the Holocaust where they are victims, right? Look at what they're doing in Gaza. They're not victims. They are perpetrators. They've been kicked out of hundreds of countries because of their holy book, because of...
Yeah, I'm going to pause that right now. At the present count, it's 109 countries have expelled the Talmudic Jews in history. Okay, is it going to become 110? We'll see.
What they believe. They believe that you are not even a human being.
That's
you
right.
are cattle if you're not a Jew. It's time for you to wake up. Watch Europa, The Last Battle. It's available on BitChute and Rumble.
Okay, I'm going to pause it again. Europa, The Last Battle. Now, I started watching that, and yes, it's a 12-hour documentary. You can't sit down and watch it in one sitting. I'm about two and a half hours into it. And I got to tell you, folks, you want to talk about, how our history has been manipulated and revised over generations. This documentary will help to undo the brainwashing that we've all been subjected to. And, they always say that, if you doubt the official story of World War II and the Holocaust, you're a Holocaust denier. As a matter of fact, there are several countries. In Germany, you cannot challenge the official story of the Holocaust. You will be arrested. There are people in jail right now because they said, 6 million? I don't think it was 6 million. Haskell, you under arrest. Off you go. Okay, you're not allowed to challenge that, despite all the documentation and the people who have admitted that, they said that they were Auschwitz survivors, and then they come out and say, well, not really. There's so much information coming out about that. And, the idea that 6 million, 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 over and over, 6 million, 6 million. Wait a second, they never talk about the Bolshevik Revolution where between 50 and 60 million Christians were slaughtered. Oh, okay, but Hitler was the worst. Oh, yeah, okay, fine, yeah. So, again, history is written by those who hang the heroes. And I'm sorry I keep interrupting, but I'm going to let her finish.
It's a 12-hour documentary, but it takes a long time to undo a decade of brainwashing that you've been subjected to as a child. So don't come in my comments calling me anti-Semitic if you're not willing to spend the time to unlearn what they've brainwashed into you.
Mm-hmm. And again, the anti-Semitic issue, anti-Semite. People never ask, who are the Semites? Who? Well, we're finding that out. And, of course, there's a certain group of people who doesn't want you to find that out. Anyway, I wanted to share that particular post for you. Let me see. Get rid of this. I made a mistake here. Let's see. Undo that. I don't want to erase that. Okay, fine. I'm not good at multitasking. I got to tell you, folks, I'm really not. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you because a lot of people are saying, are noticing and saying, wait a second, why are we supporting this particular group? What have they done for us? Maybe we should be asking the question, what have they done to us? That's a big difference. Listen to this. This guy posted, I think this was on Truth, not Truth Social. Yeah. TikTok, that's what it was. Here it is.
What have the Jewish people ever done that's bad? What have they ever done to anybody? Nothing, okay? Except communism, but, sure, that rose out of Judaism and killed 100 million Christians, but, other than that, what's the big deal? Fractional reserve banking, okay, sure. Yeah, the Fed and all that is not great. But other than communism and fractional reserve banking, what, the Middle East wars? Okay, fine. Yes, the Middle East wars and the fractional reserve banking and pornography and normalizing homosexuality and hijacking the civil rights movement. But other than that, what have they done to anybody ever? And if you're going to say they've killed hundreds of thousands of children and innocent people in their brutal wars of domination in the Middle East, then all I have to say to you is shut up, okay? It's who cares? It's other than those things, what's the big deal? What's the big issue other than the pedophile blackmail rings and the controlling the U.S. Congress and the imposing censorship on everybody because their bad deeds are being exposed? What have they ever done to anybody? The the outrage is so unwarranted and like overblown. I mean, people are acting like they killed Christ or something.
Oh, God. Well, maybe that'll help put things into perspective a little bit. But yeah, they are very good at playing the victim. They're, I saw an animation, and it showed a great big wall, a fence with a guard, a tower there, and flying the Star of Rimfan flag. And then this little kid throws a rock, and it hits the wall. And then out of the gun tower comes a missile, blows up the kid, and then the wall moves forward, and then there's another kid. And this goes on and on. It's been going on for 78 years. Yeah, 78 years. The Nakba, back in 1948. Yep. And then occasionally they have to, in their words, mow the lawn. Yeah. And they say, we have to kill the children because the children are going to grow up to become terrorists. Well, maybe if you'd stop bombing the snake snot out of them and killing their mom and their dad and their family and taking their homes, you expect them to bake you a cake? I mean, come on now. But no, they're professionals at it. They know how to play the victim. As a matter of fact, there was a black individual, Afro-American, that posted the following, and this makes too much sense.
Niggers and Jews. Two people you're not allowed to criticize in this country. If you criticize Jews, you're an anti-Semite. If you criticize blacks, you're called a racist. If you say that Jews need to be held accountable for their actions, they'll say that leads to another Holocaust. If you say that black people need to be held accountable for their actions, they'll say that leads to Jim Crow or slavery. You see the similarities here? Very interesting, isn't it? Jews taught black people how to be professional victims. And this all goes back to the Civil Rights Movement. The NAACP wasn't just founded by black people, but Jews as well. 75% of the funding in the Civil Rights Movement was done by Jews. 50% of the lawyers in the Civil Rights Movement were Jewish. The majority of the people who were closely advising Martin Luther King and wrote his speeches were Jewish. Jews used black people as a weapon against whites. Jews fear black and white people working together. Jews historically have never been loyal to any nation they've been a part of. Now, of course, this isn't every Jew, but it's a majority of Jews. Jews feel that black and white people working together for the betterment of their own existence and the existence of this country that we live in, that's a threat to them. Telling white people that they can have no pride in their race and telling black people that they are a victim forever is beneficial to Jews. Calling this out doesn't make you an anti-Semite. It's just pattern recognition.
That's exactly what it is, pattern recognition. And, as they say, those who forget their history are destined to repeat it. But what if you were never taught your history in the first place? How can you forget something that you were never taught? Well, that's where the Department of Education comes in. Yeah, I'm going to segue from one topic into another. Okay, now let's talk about the Department of Education because that's back in the news again. Now, Trump is in the process of basically streamlining and knocking down the Department of Education, and I say, hear, hear, you go for it. I've been screaming about this for decades. Now, just as a reminder, the Department of Education came into being around 1980, and at that particular time, the United States was at the top of the list with the highest quality education on the planet. Well, when you hire somebody with a one-year contract to do a particular job, at the end of the year, you review their work performance, and then you decide whether or not you're going to keep them on if they're doing a good job, or you're going to fire their sorry butt. Well, if they're doing a crappy job, you fire them, right? But if they're doing the job you want, you keep them on. Well, if you apply that towards the government's handling of the Department of Education, like I said, the first year that they came into being, the United States was at the top of the list. Top choice education in the world. Well, after a year, we dropped down a couple of notches. And another year, we dropped down another couple notches. And year after year, the United States has dropped and dropped and dropped. And then I have to ask the question, wait a second, if you're renewing the contract, they must be doing exactly the job that you want. They don't want people to be smart. They want people to simply follow orders. As a matter of fact, back in the 20 years ago when I was doing the Power Hour show with Joyce, we had a regular guest on. Her name was Charlotte Iserbyt. She was under the Reagan administration, and she wrote a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And like I said, we had Charlotte Iserbyt on as a guest numerous times, and I came across an interview that was done. I don't know who the interviewee was, but they were talking to Charlotte Iserbyt on this particular issue. And I think it's very revealing. If you haven't checked out Charlotte Iserbyt, and her last name is Iserbyt, Charlotte Iserbyt. Look her up. Check it out. Anyway, here's what she had to say in an interview she did. This has got to be about 20 years ago. Here it is.
Okay. You're saying they're brainwashing. Okay, you're saying these people that are experts in brainwashing is using the Department of Education to brainwash our children.
Yes.
What are they after? Why are they doing it?
Well, if you want to move a country from a free individualistic economy,
Which we have.
yes, or had,
Okay.
to a planned economy, you have to do it through the schools. You have to dumb down and brainwash, change the attitudes and values. You have to completely, social engineering has to go on constantly. And many teachers know what I'm talking about. And people are going to say, well, when did this start? And who on earth ever did this? Why would a plan like that be allowed to be carried out?
That's right.
Well, then you have to go back to 1934, which I will do, and we have to go to the three-pronged fork, okay? So I do think that the watershed year, although you can go back to the early part of the century when the Rockefeller Foundation and the Carnegie Corporation were deeply involved in education, and that it was decided then that Carnegie would deal with the international part and Rockefeller domestic. So they commissioned the American Historical Association to put together a study of the social studies, and they came up with lots of volumes, but I have one little volume, Conclusions and Recommendations for the Social Studies. And basically that little one is an original book. I wish I'd brought it with me. Too bad. But I don't even dare let it out of the house. It's so important. It called for changing the United States through the schools from a free individualistic economy to a socialist, collectivized, planned economy in the New World Order.
It says that in the book?
Yes.
And that book was written when?
In 1934.
By who?
It was the Carnegie Corporation paid for it. The American Historical Association put it together. And
can people get that book in the library?
No. No, they can't. They were very instrumental in getting the Elementary and Secondary Education Act passed, which, as I said before, changed education from knowledge, content-based, academic, to performance-based behavior. And from that time on, because that was necessary for what we're looking at now with school to work agenda is the planned economy is performance-based.
So they're training workers.
They're training
not thinkers, not
worker-based.
leaders.
Exactly. At that time, you had a general, Buck Chisholm, a Canadian general psychiatrist, who was a very close friend of Alger Hiss's. And he gave a speech in 1945 to the World Health Organization, which basically recommended getting rid of the conscience.
Wow.
Yes. And he said we would do it through the schools. We would retrain the teachers to be little psychiatrists. He said it is an international system they're looking at. They're going to change the behavior of the children. They're going to change the teachers' training. They're going to do everything. He told them everything.
And they didn't believe him?
No, they just let, well, you know what goes on.
Yeah, they wanted to change the behavior of the kids and get them to lose their conscience. I wonder if that worked. Well, let's look at what's been going on over there in the Middle East. And you know, with the genocide and the absolute slaughter. And again, I believe the number was 83% of the casualties in Gaza are women and children. And yet America, well, we're just more concerned with that new Disney movie that's coming out. Wicked for good. Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, and let's not forget the ball games. Yeah, I mean, people are so distracted. And like they said, people don't have a conscience. People should be out screaming. Banging pots and pans, but that's not what's happening. But, Charlotte Iserbyt was just saying that their concern was not getting, people who had critical thinking skills and cognitive abilities. They just want workers. And I think George Carlin, I think that's where he got his material, listening to Charlotte Iserbyt for his following bit. Here he is.
But there's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. Now use your thinking cap, folks. Which group do you think he's talking about? Which group is controlling the media? Which group has taken control of the Department of Education? Which group is taking control of just about every institution in this country? I wonder who he could be talking about.
We know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table to figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers.
Bingo.
Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club. And you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club.
Yeah, where have we heard that before? Absolutely. Well, I'm going to take a quick break. Be right back.
Get More Tank will save you money every month on gas. Get More Tank is a tablet with active ingredients that adds big mileage to every tank. Made in America, the Get More Tank formula is used by trucking companies and heavy industry. Now the Get More Tank formula is available to you. Get More Tank works in any gas or diesel engine, cleans your engine, lowers emissions, and you'll feel improved engine performance every time you step on the gas. Get More Tank works for cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, four-wheelers, mowers, and blowers. Hey, if you got an engine, then Get More Tank. Contractors, electricians, plumbers, painters, and lawn service companies, Get More Tank will save you money and extend the life of your engines. If you're an owner-operator running your big rig around the town or across the country, Get More Tank will save you money too. If you're a farmer, all of your equipment can use Get More Tank. A 5-pack on sale at GetMoreTank.com for just $22.22 plus shipping. Use the promo code REDPILL101 and get 10% off. Save your money, save your engine, save the earth at GetMoreTank.com. Get More Tank is EPA registered, doesn't void warranties, results vary.
And you can get More Tank by visiting our website, TheWTFReports.com. Click on the sponsors page and it'll take you down to a window where you can click on the Get More Tank and get all the interesting information, the specifications and details on how and why this fuel catalyst works. No, it's not a fuel additive. It's a fuel catalyst. Totally different animal. What this thing does is it changes the way your fuel burns in your engine. It burns at a slightly lower temperature. It cleans out the engine. And right away, at the first tank, you'll notice that you have more power. When you hit that accelerator, boom, you're out. You got G-forces happening. And then over a period of time, after 2 or 3 tanks, you're going to notice that the mileage on your vehicle is going to increase. Anywhere between 15 and 20% better mileage, depending upon your make, model, and year of vehicle and how you're driving, of course. So this is like a no-brainer, folks. This stuff actually works. I've been using it in my vehicles now for 2 years, and I'm glad that I did. When I hit the gas, my car runs great. I got a problem with the rear end on it, but aside from that, the engine's doing just fine. So if you want to save some money, you want to help the environment, you want to have a better, cleaner running engine, then Get More Tank. You'll be glad that you did. Okay, it's time for a little music. We were talking about the Department of Education and how we've all been dumbed down and our priorities are all screwed up. So this is a little song about exactly that situation.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Modern American Song. Well, I'm an American and I've got rights as long as my government says so. And I can do anything I want as long as I get a license or a permit. And the things that I own debt-free. As long as I pay tax, they won't take them from me. Yeah, I'm in control of my destiny. At least that's what they tell me. Yeah, I've got the right of redress, but they don't have to answer. And I can ask any questions I want as long as it doesn't make them look bad. Because here in America, the government answers to me unless it's a question of national security. Yeah, I can say anything I want as long as I agree with them. Yeah, here in America, I've got a free press as long as I own it. And I can trust the TV reporters as far as I can throw a bus. Because I get my news from my TV, and I see the world the way they want me to see it. And we don't have any spin doctors, but I get dizzy just watching them. And my political voice can be heard as long as it's Republican or Democrat. And I can vote any way I want, but I don't get to see them counted. Because here in America, our elections are free and the results are in before the count on my TV. Yes, we elect our own officials, and that's what they want us to believe. Yeah, I've got the right to own a gun as long as they say so. And I've got the right to demonstrate as long as there's not more than two of us at a time. Our forefathers secured our liberty, but we've traded them in for our security. No, we don't need our rights anymore because our government's going to take good care of us. Yes, I know I'll get a speedy trial if they want to shut me up. And I've got a right to defend myself, but I can't submit any evidence. Yes, I'll expose the corrupt and I won't budge as long as I'm not exposing some judge. Yeah, I can say anything I want, but I won't have to...
Yeah, haul that guy off. Oh, yeah, I threw that song together, I don't know, about 20 years ago, and it seems to apply again. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to open up the phone lines if you want to give me a call. If you think I'm out to lunch, you think I'm crazy, you think I'm nuts, if you think I'm spot on, fine, let's hear from you. 215-867-8255. Again, that's 215-867-8255. I've got a new setup here. I had to make the switch from, I've been using a MacBook Pro for years and years, and I had to switch over to Windows. And for some of the programs that I'm using now, as I'm slowly but surely learning, how to get around with these new computers. And hopefully within the next week or two, we'll be making this into a video podcast. Yeah. So anyway, 215-867-8255 is the phone number here. And like I said, it's okay to be wrong once in a while. But, they've been going after Candace Owens really badly, and Tucker Carlson, and Ian Carroll, and Ryan Mata, and Eric Warsaw, and any other podcast. Oh, Jimmy Dore. There's a lot of people now that are challenging the official narrative of why and how Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Now, I remind you, folks, that the conspiracy theorists out there are batting darn near 1,000 these days. We look back at the assassination of JFK. We were told that it was Lee Harvey Oswald. He was a lone crazy shooter. And now most of America realizes that we were lied to, okay? We were lied to about the Oklahoma City bombing as well, and I could pull up some of the audio clips there all about the second bomb and the third bomb and the bomb trucks that were hauling bombs around. And then all of a sudden they fabricated this whole story into it being, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols and a fertilizer bomb. And so, okay, we found out that was horse hockey too. Well, a lot of people, they still think that it's Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols because they were never exposed to the alternate information. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that whenever anybody is challenging the official narrative of whatever, shall we open up the can of worms, which is 9/11? Yeah, okay. But you're immediately labeled, you're discredited, you're insulted, you're called crazy, you're called this, you're called that, but they never can dispute the facts. And I can't help but say, as far as Candace Owen is concerned, I believe that she's doing a yeoman's job. She's doing a hell of a job. She's doing a much better job than the FBI. And anybody who's swallowing the horse hockey that they're throwing down your collective gullet of the American population here, it was Tyler Robinson. Yeah, 30-06. Yeah, 30-06. Yeah, a spine of steel. Yeah, I mean, come on. We're not swallowing this crap. And, so like I said, Candace is taking all kinds of hits over this. But I just wanted to point that out because the jury's still out on that. And we're gonna find out one way or another what happened with Charlie Kirk's assassination, and because this is not 1963 anymore. Back in those days, all we had for our news and information were, of course, the alphabet networks: ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS. That was before CNN, okay? And there was no social media, there was no internet, so we pretty much had to go by what they told us. So, but today, we've got computers, and we can do all kinds of searches, and that's exactly what's going on. There's an army of people that are digging and finding out what happened as far as this state-sponsored assassination is concerned. So, anyway, again, the phone number here is 215-867-8255. Let me see. I've got a couple other clips here. Let me see. We already played that one. This is something that I've been talking about for quite some time, and that is that the globalist agenda, the number one agenda that they've got, and they are very heavily invested in this, is reducing the world's population. They have to knock it down. And right now, the main tool that they're going to be using, the World Economic Forum and the WHO and all this stuff, is global warming, climate crisis, carbon footprint. Now, this in itself is stupid. It's stupid. They're saying that there's too much carbon. We're destroying the earth with all this carbon dioxide. And wait a second. I remember when I was in grade school that I was taught that trees and plants, they all breathe carbon dioxide, and they exhale, or if you can call it that, oxygen. Yeah, so we've got this really good symbiotic relationship between humanity and plants, forests, trees. So why is it that they're not planting trees? Why is it that Bill Gates is wanting to cut down all the trees and bury them? I mean, they're doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing. But, of course, the American people have been dumbed down, as I was just pointing out, thanks to the Department of Education and all the other media and stuff like that keeps feeding us intellectual fecal matter. And as a result, the collective American population ends up with stuff for brains. And that's why we can't figure this out. Modern American. Yeah. Anyway, here's a little montage, a collection of individuals. We're talking about reducing the population. Now, you're going to hear from Kamala Harris. You're going to hear from Bill Gates. You're going to hear from, what's his name? Yuval Harari. Yuval, he's the sidekick to what's his name at the WEF. I'm having a senior moment here. And then you'll hear from Larry Fink, and you're going to hear from Jane Goodall. But here's a little collection.
When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
What do we need humans for? Or at least, what do we need so many humans for?
Do you have an answer in the book?
At present, the best guess we have is keep them happy with drugs and computer games.
In substituting humans for machines,
Larry Fink,
is going to be far easier in those countries that have declining populations.
Please think about what you in your organization
Jane Goodall
to help human population decrease.
So the bottom line here is that the globalist agenda here, their number one concern is to drastically reduce the world population. And if you're going to go by what was etched in stone at the Georgia Guidestones, which said, and I quote, maintain humanity at no more than 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. That means 500 million people. So if we currently have 8 billion people on this planet, 7.5 billion have to go. Yeah. Well, maybe if we weren't squandering our resources, and maybe if we would release the hidden technologies that have been buried for the past century, you know, the zero-point energy, the magnet power, the Stan Meyer technology. Stan Meyer, I had the pleasure of meeting him a few months before he was assassinated. Yeah, he was poisoned. But, he'd made a car, and he drove from the East Coast to the West Coast on 22 gallons of water. Yep, it burned hydrogen and let off oxygen as exhaust. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, well, they've got these technologies, but they won't release them because they like the money. They like the control. I mean, it was John D. Rockefeller who said competition is sin, which is why Standard Oil was pushed down, pushed and pushed and pushed, and our rail systems were pretty much destroyed and disassembled. I mean, if you look at the rail systems in Europe, you can get anywhere in Europe by hopping on a train. Yeah, they don't have as many cars because they got trains, and not just passenger trains, but freight trains. So a lot of their goods travel by rail. Okay, which means that there's less pollution and more efficient use of energy. But not so here in the United States. No, they pretty much took all of the rail systems out. So we are completely dependent upon oil and automobiles and trucks. This is the mentality that is destroying the world, or will continue to destroy the world. And of course they say, oh, we got the carbon footprint and stuff like, well, you did it. You monsters did it. You created this problem. And now they want to offer us a solution. Yeah. And circling back to anybody who points these things out, yes, you're called crazy. You're called a conspiracy theorist. And again, I refer to all the independent researchers that are out there, all the people who are exposing this type of information, and the ridicule and the insults that they take. It's criminal. It is criminal, and they call you crazy. They call you unstable. I wrote a song about that, too, and here's a piece of it anyway.
If you label as unstable all the ones who disagree, you take away the right of speaking out and thinking free. If the founders were so labeled, then where would our country be? We wouldn't have our freedom or our precious liberty.
Yeah, if you label as unstable all the ones who disagree, you take away their right of speaking out and thinking free. If our founders were so labeled, then where would our country be? You wouldn't have your freedoms or your precious liberty. Yeah. Anyway, let me see. I got something else here. Oh, yeah, we were talking about, what George Carlin was saying. They own everything. They're in control of this. They're controlling. They own the Department of Education. They own all of our manufacturing. They own the media. And they run the banks. Yeah, the money. Who was it? Amir Rothschild said many, many years ago, I care not who makes the laws of a country. Let me control the money, and I will control the country. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. But that's what he said, and that's exactly the way it is. And that brings us to the topic of usury. Now, we know that Yeshua, Jesus, he threw the money changers out of the temple. Why? Because they were charging interest, and interest is illegal to Christians, and it's also illegal to Muslims. As a matter of fact, here's a little, you're going to hear from a Christian, a Muslim, and a Jew, and here it is.
Usury is the crime of charging interest on loans. The idea here is that you are taking money and you are making money, more money, by doing nothing. All right. And in the Middle Ages, this was seen as violence against God.
One thing in Islam which is not allowed, clearly, is interest. It's not allowed to give it or receive it. It's actually one of the major sins of Islam. Interest is the idea of getting something for nothing. So they say that this is an exploitative thing in its core, therefore we don't accept it.
The Gemara says that ribis, interest, is called agar natar, meaning it's a rental payment for renting out money. And that the Torah prohibits. In fact, for non-Jews, you're allowed to rent out your money. La nochri tashich, the Torah says. You're allowed to take ribis, to take interest, from a loan to a non-Jew. But for Jews, you're not allowed to take interest.
Now, isn't that interesting? Now, so usury is illegal to Christians. It's illegal to Muslims, but it's promoted by the Jews. And by the way, when a Jew goes to take out a loan, they get it interest-free, don't they? Yeah. Well, I mean, in some certain circumstances. I'm not going to say that as a blanket statement. But the bottom line here is that, this is their practice. And this is one of the reasons why so many countries have expelled and thrown them out of their country. And I believe, like I said, I think it's through history, 109 countries have expelled this particular group of people for these exact reasons. And now that we circle back to what happened in World War II, I played a clip a couple days ago of a rabbi who was basically explaining, we went into Germany and we started promoting all this lewd and lascivious behavior and turned Berlin into a den of iniquity with homosexuality and transgender and pornography and all this. Yeah, we did that. Yeah, that's what we did. And it's sort of got Hitler really ticked off about it, And they've admitted it. It's out in the open. This is not a big secret. So, anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, and I'm gonna play another song here, just for yucks and giggles, but because none of this stuff, is a big surprise to yours truly. And I got to tell you something, folks. When I started doing talk radio, I wasn't expecting to tumble down a rabbit hole. I've always been a musician, a guitar player, singer-songwriter. And but I also did a lot of commercials and narrations and stuff like that back in the 80s. And I was a staff announcer for an ABC affiliate in Connecticut at WTNH. And then I moved over to WFSB, a CBS affiliate. And as I was, becoming more and more aware of the world's situation, I became aware of how many lies there are out there. And my own personal philosophy, and it's in the liner notes of my first album, I said, if you become aware of a lie and you do nothing to expose the lie, you become part of the lie. Now, I'm not stupid, and I don't believe I'm crazy, but I don't lie, okay? And this is why I come to this program with the audio receipts. So you can't say, well, Dave said this and Dave said that. Yeah, there's a couple of things I'll throw my 2 cents in and give my editorial comment. When I happen to notice certain percentages, what was I saying a little bit earlier in today's show? 97.5%. Yeah. I mean, I'll throw in my own 2 cents, but I have a good reason to throw those 2 cents in there because I have the audio receipts. And you can confirm all this stuff by doing just a little bit of research. So, anyway, there's probably not enough time to play that particular song. But I was talking a little bit earlier about the Oklahoma City bombing and how we were lied to about that. So I'm going to share that with you right now.
In Oklahoma City, one fateful April day, the lives of many innocents were taken all away. At first the truth was broadcast for all the state to hear.
I think he said another bomb.
Oh my God, another bomb.
People ran in fear. The helicopter fly by. The crater wasn't there. Sophisticated bombs were found, but vanished in thin air. An artist drew a picture of how the crater's supposed to be. They published it in Newsweek for all the world to see. The story of a car bomb soon became a minivan, but they settled on a Ryder truck as they devised their plan. The seismograph in Norman recorded 2 events, but it never was reported. This cover-up is immense.
A second bomb was found on the east side of that building. A bomb squad is on the scene. That second bomb has not exploded. We don't know quite the status yet if they've managed to defuse it, but it has been confirmed that a second bomb was found on the east side of that building.
So apparently they're going to try to get out that third bomb that's been talked about.
The networks joined the cover-up. Now they're part of the crime. Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings, and Dan Rather should do time. I ask you, OK City, how could you let them tell those lies? Were you too scared to take a stand? Were you deaf to all those cries? You claim to love your country, but refuse to get involved. And until you open up your mouth, this crime just won't be solved.
In fact, what we were told at the scene a few minutes ago was that, in fact, 2 different explosive devices were found in addition to the one that went off.
So a total of 3.
A total of 3, and of course then there was mass confusion.
The second explosive was found and defused. The third explosive that was found, and they are working on right now as we speak, I understand, both the second and third explosives, if you can imagine this, were larger than the first.
This is the work of a sophisticated group. This is a very sophisticated device, and it has to have been done by an explosives expert.
We actually have got diffused bombs.
If our government was truthful and had nothing there to hide, then why were these reports ignored and quickly pushed aside? They said it was those patriots. Militias took the blame to discredit those who tell the truth. That's how they play that game. Then they destroyed the evidence to let the memory decay and quickly pass a terrorist bill to take your rights away.
Keating, Governor Frank Keating.
The reports I have is that one device was deactivated. Apparently there's another device, and obviously whatever did the damage to the Murrah building was a tremendous, very sophisticated explosive device.
America, wake up.
Are there any circumstances under which an individual is justified to blow up any building?
After you've evacuated it and you wanted to cover up the evidence.
Yeah, well, we were lied to about the Oklahoma City bombing. We were lied to about the 9/11 attacks. We were lied to about the 7/7 attacks in the London tubes. We've been lied to over and over and over again. Oh, but they're telling the truth about the Charlie Kirk assassination. Yeah, it really was Tyler Robinson. Yeah, it was, a 30-06. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Think outside the cage, folks. Think outside the cage. All right, let's go. There's that music again, folks. It's time to wrap this show up here and say goodbye to you for today. But I'll be back again tomorrow with more of the news they hope and pray you never hear. So if you're enjoying the WTF reports and you're listening on Rumble or BitChute or Facebook or whatever, don't forget to click, like, share, subscribe, and above all else, spread the word. Word of mouth is the best advertising. So anyway, until tomorrow, folks, I'll be back, and hope you're enjoying the broadcast. So see you tomorrow. God bless you all. Stay safe and stay free.